Zardoz speaks to you, his chosen ones.
The chosen one!
You have been raised up from brutality to kill the brutals who multiply, and are legion. To this end, Zardoz, your god, gave you the gift of the gun. The gun is good.
The gun! The gun!
The penis is evil. The penis shoots seeds and makes new life to poison the earth with a plague of men, as once it was. But the gun shoots death and purifies the earth of the filth of brutals. Go forth and kill.
A modern day remake of Matthew Vaughn's Lay a Kick. A Coen brothers end up with Timothy Chalamet. A Citizen Kane prequel, a Midnight Cowboy sequel. Alvin and the Chipmunks deserve another squeak. There's so many new ways to revisit sideways, but a graphic novel is how we choose to update. But we still hold fast, you can't change the past on the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Despite having an inherently badass name, Newark, New Jersey-born rapper Dwayne Battle opted instead to go by the nom de plume Young Z. During the mid-90s, Young Z was a member of the hip-hop crew Outsidaz, with a Z, who were featured on the Fugees' 1996 recording Cowboys, and later released 2 albums in the early 2000s. But in 2002, Young Z had a song from his solo efforts released on the soundtrack for the film 8 Mile, though even with an explicit rating on this episode, I won't say the title out loud. Young Z signed to Runyon Avenue Records, which was surprising to his fans as they assumed he would sign to Eminem's label, Shady Records, which was affiliated with Aftermath and Interscope Records. Founded in 1990, Interscope differed from most record labels by letting its A&R team control decisions and allowed artists and producers full creative control of their albums. Interscope was created by visionaries Jimmy Iovine of Beats by Dre fame and Revenge of the Nerds producer Ted Field, who were brought together by then U2 manager Paul McGuinness. Born at a British military hospital in West Germany, McGuinness was raised by Sheila and Philip McGuinness in Eastern Ireland, not too far from Dublin. But it was during his time at Trinity College in Dublin that he edited the school magazine, directed plays, and promoted live music performances before ultimately dropping out of school. By this time, Paul had a career managing the folk group Spud, eventually leading him to managing U2. But before he linked up with Bono, The Edge, and the other guys, Paul got a job as assistant film director on this episode's film. Greetings, Starfighters. This is Ruined Childhoods. I'm John, joined as always by my brother Dan. And on this episode, we celebrate John Boorman's 1974 heady futuristic fantasy adventure Zardoz, the story of a savage who becomes mixed up with a group of eternal folks thanks to a man named Arthur Frayne who goes by the nom de plume Zardoz. Dan, at what point during this movie did you realize that you were watching something truly special?
Let's see. The very first frame.
The first frame. Same.
Same.
Okay.
I would say this. I would say maybe by the 5th frame, because by then I kind of, it took maybe 5 frames of film to get the vibe, because I just needed to see some motion.
Yeah, and motion it had. It was like a screensaver.
Oh, well, that was when I was like, oh, it's like when you're in like school, like the DVD player is like, it goes to the screensaver and you're like, oh, hit the corner.
Yeah, exactly. That's I'm sure that most modern audiences had that exact same experience.
I hope so. It was definitely the first thing that popped into my mind. So
yeah, rightfully so.
But yeah, right off the bat, you know what you're getting into with this movie, because it doesn't it doesn't get less weird.
Not at all, Dan. I was dazzled. I was absolutely drawn into the world of Zardoz, this futuristic world. And wow, there's no turning back. We are different people now.
Yes, we're through the vortex.
We are through the vortex. That is right.
So, but anyway, we should probably, before we get into, because I feel like once we get into the vortex, it's hard to get back out. And,
you're going to do a synopsis?
Well, yeah. Should we do the synopsis? Or, John, I did want to, before we talked about Zardoz, this is a podcast about the remakes and reboots and legacies.
The continuing legacies.
Yes, continuing legacies of, it goes so far beyond reboots and remakes. But one of our, and it's of course, don't quote unquote ruin my childhood by taking something that I loved and making a new version of it, which they have done with The Naked Gun. And
correct,
I know it had been like long discussed, and then we know that they filmed with Akiva Schaffer directing and Liam Neeson starring, but really not that many other questions or answers, I should say, to questions about a Naked Gun remake or reboot. What would it be? And they released a teaser trailer for it, which you and I both had an opportunity to view. And
yeah, what'd you think?
It's so first of all, like what made The Naked Gun work so well, in my opinion, there's a lot of elements of what made The Naked Gun work so well that just can't be redone. It's like Leslie Nielsen was one of a kind, and you have that.
He was the Naked Gun.
Yes, Lieutenant Frank Drebin, but it was also like he was also like Leslie, and maybe Liam Neeson is the right person to be playing, as we discover in the trailer, the son of Frank Drebin. Which, by the way, I did appreciate how they got in front of the OJ thing.
I thought that was the one thing that I liked about it, is explaining the legacy of Nordberg in a way that was referential to O.J. Simpson. Right.
And also like just kind of kind of showing us, all right, you're kind of parody. And in the respect that we do see that there's a bit of a parody of legacy sequels.
Yeah.
In it, or legacy, reboots, things like that, where they acknowledge the original characters and cast members and establish some connection to them. So in that respect, it was like, okay, well, maybe there is something here, because also like The Naked Gun, spoof movies really don't happen the way that they used to. And it used to be where you could do The Naked Gun in 1988 and reference very specifically Dirty Harry from 1971. And also have that reference, have the scene still be funny, because I know neither you nor I had seen Dirty Harry, and we talked about this on our Dirty Harry episode way back when, but you and I had not seen Dirty Harry. The scene was still funny, but it is much funnier once you've seen Dirty Harry.
Totally.
So there's my skepticism about, like, we don't really have movies that can do that anymore. We don't have this kind of collective, as a society, we don't have as much of that collective knowledge of film and popular culture, where it's much more fragmented now. So I feel like something like The Naked Gun kind of has to take some different angles towards it. Now, coming back to the whole, casting thing, I mean, I don't think remaking The Naked Gun or rebooting or doing anything with it, I'm not really a fan of any of that. I'm a fan of like, hey, like, let's let these movies be, like, screen them at comedy festivals, but
I think there's a way to do it, but I don't think that they're doing it the way that it should be done, from what I can tell. And I know that you, hold on one second. I know that you said that you don't mind the casting of
I didn't say
Liam
that.
Neeson.
I didn't say
Okay.
that. I didn't say
Okay.
that. I said that maybe he's the right actor.
Okay, but see, that's where I disagree. That's kind of the core of where I disagree with you, because the thing about Leslie Nielsen, and I don't know if they cast Liam Neeson because he has the same initials and a kind of pseudo similar sounding name, but Leslie Nielsen, he was, a straight actor and was just he was an actor. Liam Neeson is a movie star that has gone through controversies and is kind of known to be a little humorless, and not just in his acting, but as a person. And I feel like Liam Neeson, I'm going into it thinking, boy, Liam Neeson, he had a lot of major success and has just been trying to recapture what he had from Taken. Because,
Right.
obviously he had some amazing roles before then, Schindler's List, whatever. But like, once he got Taken and that was a success, he was doing all of these movies that were like, oh, it's his role in Taken, but slightly tweaked, whether it's The Gray or one of the many like direct to streaming movies that he did after that. And I feel like this, for him, you're going into it being like, okay, he's attempting to just try something different with his career. Whereas with Leslie Nielsen, nobody knew of any controversies for him. And as far as his acting career went, he was a working actor.
Well, no.
It.
And I think that I feel like the Liam Neeson controversy, as far as I know, stems from there's one interview that I can think of that I'm like, oh, yeah, that was.
It colored him instantly in a very negative way for a lot of people.
No, I know. I agree. It's, and I'm not like all about, like, I feel like we've seen the best of Liam Neeson already, and we don't need more Liam Neeson. And yes, there would probably be better, find some, a character actor, like someone who has been, just kind of not on the sidelines, but someone like a Leslie Nielsen, a working actor.
Mm-hmm.
But it also, Leslie Nielsen came up during a different age of Hollywood where you just had these like contract actors, and and ZAZ did stuff with all of those guys like Peter Graves and Robert Vaughn, Lloyd Bridges.
Yeah.
So great examples there. And I'm sure you could find somebody now to do that with, but like they were also known for these being like just very like straight-laced serious actors. Right. So I'm off the top, I'm sure if I took some time and thought about it, I could come up with some names, but
who I think would be good is somebody who like had a theatrical or feature run for a hot minute and then kind of just got lost in the procedural world. I feel like that's a good place to go from. Some people like Mark Harmon would be interesting. Or like William Peterson?
Actually, no, fucking William Peterson would be great.
William Peterson would be really good. People who just kind of were, they took that opportunity to go into the very secure world of like leading a procedural for but 30 years.
All right, so here's why William Peterson. So I think recently we did talk about To Live and Die in L.A., right?
Did we?
Did we talk about it?
It's a great movie.
I feel like maybe I intended to talk about it, but so William Peterson is like, you think of To Live and Die in L.A., Manhunter.
Right, exactly. And then what is it? NCIS or one of those?
I think it was CSI. I think
CSI.
I don't know. Yeah, no, NCIS is Mark Harmon.
That one's Mark Harmon.
Oh, right. Like David Caruso.
David Caruso would be an interesting one. I don't know if he's necessarily right for a.
No, I'm thinking of other actors like that who were like, who else I was thinking that's like more current is like maybe a Mark Rylance would be really.
Just known for playing pretty serious roles and
he's very like low key and does these serious, very understated roles. Like I recently watched one where he plays like a tailor in Chicago who's like giving he's
Mm-hmm.
like helping out the local mobs. He like gives them a place
Yeah.
to like hide out.
Well, Dan, I think it's a really great moment then to now pivot to somebody who's playing very much a not understated role.
No.
And I'm talking Sean Connery in Zardoz.
And somebody who was looking to do something different with their career. And
Admirable.
And shake
I
off-
appreciate that.
And by the way, like, let's get out in front of this one. Sean Connery his reputation is not free from scandal or regrettable interview statements.
Totally.
Yes.
Historically.
Yes.
But that's not, we would never be pitching him for a
No,
Naked Gun,
but
Frank
also
Drebin.
just so that, hey, like if you're like me and you're listening to this and you're like, hey, look, if you're going to bring up Liam Neeson's slips, like you can't forget
Yes.
Connery.
But we're only bringing up Liam Neeson's slips in the context of putting him in a role where the benefit of the person who originated that type of character was just a very like non-controversial person.
Yes. And in fact, actually, what I've heard about, just to close the door on Leslie Nielsen, is so, and this is also because this past weekend we celebrated WrestleMania, and
did we?
And there was so actually it wasn't a WrestleMania, it was a WWF SummerSlam, like way long ago, and they were, I think, promoting Naked Gun 33 1/3. So the WWF brought in Leslie Nielsen like to play Frank Drebin.
Okay.
And
Dan, we're going way off the rails
here.
No.
No. I'm going to bring it right back. Okay.
Okay.
So no, just because this is what a non-controversial guy Leslie Nielsen is they were not going to hire George Kennedy. That was who played, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They were just going to have Leslie Nielsen do it. And Leslie Nielsen was like, hey, he's been out of work. He could use the money. I'll pay him out of my own salary.
Mm-hmm.
And they had Ed and Frank Drebin,
which is
on the case. Yeah.
So you're bringing it around?
So, Joe, just to get back to what a great guy Leslie Nielsen was, and we're going to be saying a lot of great things about Sean Connery. So,
right,
I'm full disclosure. I'm just distracted because I'm also awaiting a delivery that I want to make sure they don't ring the doorbell.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, then here's what I'm going to do, Dan, while you're dealing with that. First, I'm going to ask you, and I'm assuming this was your first time seeing Zardoz.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. I'm just messaging them to put things in the mailbox and not ring the bell.
So, under what circumstances did you watch the movie?
Under what are you asking this because it was just after 420 and
no.
And
well,
it's that kind of movie?
I mean, I guess that's part of it, but I was thinking more of just like, I know how sometimes you put on these movies in chunks and watch them on phones or laptops or however you can.
I did my best on this. This one I actually was able to like commit a chunk of time to watching it pretty much in one sitting.
Good.
Yeah. There were times where I definitely had to like go back and just be like, what just happened?
Yeah. And that's a benefit of watching it at home, which people couldn't do in 1974.
Right.
Or under the circumstances under which I watched it for the first time. Can I show you a little video?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
Okay. So for our episode on Zardoz, which is our Z or Z episode, I have the luxury of seeing it.
You lucky boy.
In a theater at the Hollywood Theater here in Portland. They happen to be showing it, and I am really excited to check this out for my very first time. I have no idea what to expect. I don't even know what this movie is about. I just hear that it's bananas, and let's do this. One Zardoz runtime later. Okay, I don't even know what to say. That was absolutely wild, and seeing it in a packed theater is the only way to see that movie. Of course. I don't even know if I have words right now, but holy moly, that's perfect movie, perfect ending. I'm going to gather my thoughts and report back in the full episode. But thank you to the Hollywood Theater for doing this. Wow, you really pulled out all the stops in programming Zardoz, because that movie, the theater was packed. It was like basically completely sold out, and seeing it in a room full of people who either were the first time people seeing it or people who are diehard fans of this movie was the way to do it. Amazing. So I actually went to go see it with a friend of mine, and because I saw that it was playing, and I was like, "Oh my God, we're covering this movie." This was a month ago, by the way.
I'm having retroactive FOMO right now. By the way, I'm like, in a way I don't normally have. I'm so jealous.
So I have a friend who, if I'm going to go see a movie that's really bananas, I know I can text her and be like, "Hey, do you want to go see this?" And she'll be like, "Let's do it." And so I saw that they were going to be doing Zardoz. I texted her and she was like, "Yes, absolutely." What I didn't know is that it's one of her favorite movies, and that she, would show, I know her through a friend of the podcast, Eric Goslin, who joined us for Tango and Cash, I believe. And, she used to make him watch it. I think they went to college together or something. And he said, "Oh my God, she's the biggest Zardoz fan." And this was after we had already made the arrangements to go. So she knew that it was my first time, and did a really good job of not telling me anything in advance. All I knew about the movie was the image that you see of Sean Connery with the bandolier on, and, and it's just like, okay, I don't know what this is, but it's super weird. And Dan, you know what? While I'm showing videos, I also want to show you a video from our TikTok account that is from an old episode. This is actually from an episode that was earlier on in this current series. It was on our episode for the movie M, but for some reason we talked about something very appropriate. Let's watch it.
John, you and I off the podcast have talked about, or rather I've more talked about it recently, the Sean Connery sci-fi like excursion in the late 70s. And I have a feeling like Sean Connery maybe like got involved with like an agent or like who was not looking out for his best interests. But I feel like Never Say Never Again came right after the series of sci-fi movies that he made, like Meteor, Outland, and Zardoz.
Yeah, and before his ponytail era, where like all of his characters had like a ponytail wig or hair extensions.
Oh, right, like
Highlander.
Highlander,
yeah, exactly.
And then
The Rock, I think he had a ponytail at the beginning.
In the beginning of The Rock, right?
Yeah. Did he have one in Entrapment? I feel like he might have had one in Entrapment. That would have gotten caught on those laser beams that Catherine Zeta-Jones's butt managed to get around.
Right.
But the ponytail would have been done for.
No, no ponytail. No ponytail for the Untouchables. Medicine Man ponytail.
If he could have had two ponytails, he would have.
Oh, like one to swing on and one to swing from his majestic head.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we didn't mention, I mean, you brought up Zardoz as being part of his sci-fi era, but we didn't mention the fact that he has like a crazy ponytail in Zardoz,
right?
But we both hadn't seen it. I think that we both probably only saw that one image of Connery. But majestic.
Yeah, no. And I did do a little bit of I don't want to say Connery deep dive, but I was trying to, check out some of the other 70s era Connery films, or not 70s. Cause I'm like, what's the one that I watched? Oh yeah. The Name of the Rose from like 86, which is interesting because it's the first time Sean Connery and Christian Slater share the screen.
Interesting.
Yes, the second being Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Of course.
Yes, for like 10 seconds.
For 10 seconds, yeah.
But it was, The Name of the Rose is really interesting movie. So, I mean, if anyone ever wants to watch a movie that just basically there's one woman in it and it's arrested, let's take a bunch of character actors, aka ugly guys, and character like Ron Perlman is in it, and they're like, how do we make Ron Perlman look more like messed up? And
he'd be a good Frank Drebin.
I fucking love Ron Perlman. Yeah, Ron Perlman would be amazing. So anyway, it was so yeah, Name of the Rose, which was interesting and kind of fun. I had watched Meteor, which I was disappointed by. Outland,
Never seen that
which I was not. Outland, which is High Noon in space. And it was very good. And as it turns out, the reason why Connery was doing a lot of movies that may have seemed a bit beneath his station, some bad real estate deals.
Okay.
Yeah. So some bad real estate deals, but he did Bond, and then like took a 1-film break from Bond, and then came back after On Her Majesty's Secret Service,
right?
Then wrapped up with, I think, For Your Eyes Only. No,
I'm not going to fact check you.
Yeah,
on
no.
Yeah.
No, actually Diamonds Are Forever, I think, was his last one. And then he, and then apparently he wasn't, getting the offers. The offers were not rolling in despite his prolific filmography. Oh, the other one I watched was The Offense, which was a Sidney Lumet, movie.
I like Lumet.
Yeah. I mean, this is really interesting because it's set in like more rural England, and is it's basically like Connery's a cop who goes too far interrogating a suspect.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, so to bring it back to his career right around the time that before Zardoz is being made.
Yes.
So I thought that as we may have talked about this before, but as far as Bonds go, he's, one of my favorites. I think, he's the first on screen, at least official canon Bond. And I enjoy his performance as James Bond in his James Bond movies. And I feel like he really did a solid job of like establishing this character in our collective consciousness. And
so, if I can interject, so much so that Ian Fleming wrote Scottish heritage into the books.
It's great. And so to then team up with John Boorman, after John Boorman had this incredible success with Deliverance, which made gobs of money based on its like meager budget, it makes a lot of sense. And also for somebody who's looking to do something completely different, like this is as completely different as it can get. And or maybe Medicine Man would be as completely different as you can get, but that we're not there yet.
No.
So for there to be, and this is a pre-Star Wars era of a futuristic, I mean, I guess you can say dystopian. I mean, we're in that era of like your Logan's Run and your Soylent Green and all that kind of stuff where like it's like the human race has gone too far.
It's kind of Hunger Games-ish because they kind of they separate them. It's the ultimate like it's the ultimate like elitism versus it's like the liberal elites and then the hunter gatherers basically.
Yeah. But what's also interesting about this movie is that like it's never really established. I mean, I think that like the year is established, but it's like this might not even take place on Earth. Like it's almost like where are all the rest of the people? Like what's their deal? And it's almost just like it doesn't matter because this is just such an isolated story of like these particular groups of people.
So it is Earth.
It is Earth.
It is Earth. It's the year 2293. And yeah, they basically have like what I feel like I took a note on this.
And also, you haven't done a synopsis yet.
No, so I haven't. Yeah,
we should get into that.
Oh, okay, all right. So, but I mean, here, why don't I do the synopsis and then I'll find my. Oh man. I took a lot of random notes during this, so let me just let me jump into the synopsis and then yeah, it's Earth 2293, and it's basically like the, you know, the hoity-toity, cultural elite have like walled themselves off, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, herein lies the synopsis.
Mm-hmm.
Over 200 years in the future, civilized society is split between two categories, the mortal brutals and the immortal eternals. Our story follows Zed, a brutal exterminator who infiltrates a land called the Vortex, a protected land in which the Eternals reside. After finding his way into the residence of Arthur Frayne, the man behind Zardoz, the godlike entity worshipped by the Brutals, who preached the glory of the gun and the evils of the penis, Zed discovers technologies that expand his understanding of Zardoz, the Vortex, and life as he knows it. During his exploration of the Vortex, Zardoz meets more Eternals, notably Consuela, Friend, and May. They are all equally fascinated and frightened by Zed, but there's one thing that brings them hope, the idea that Zed could maybe bring them what they've wanted for many years, the sweet embrace of death. As Zed, we have Sean Connery. And Charlotte
Rampling.
Charlotte Rampling. Yeah, Charlotte Rampling as Consuela.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't have any of the other actors' names in front of me. I'm sorry. I had the guy who plays Arthur Frayne.
Arthur Frayne.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I had the guy who plays Friend as well, but I don't know. There are just lots of lines and my gut reactions to this, and including this movie couldn't be weirder if Jack Nicholson, Bob Raffleson, and the Monkees took acid and wrote it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was certainly a lot of hallucinogenic drugs that took place in the creation of this movie. Yeah. John Boorman really took advantage of that blank check and capitalized on his successes from Deliverance and really did his own thing. And here's the deal, Dan. I am not going to talk down on this movie.
No.
So many people, credited as being this, it's so bad, it's good kind of a thing, or, like, oh my God, I can't believe that this got made. Here's the deal. I am so happy that this got made because we need movies like this.
Yes.
We need to have these examples of people who take these gigantic big swings.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if they hit or miss. We are let in on an experience. And the fact that Sean Connery is part of this and doing some really strange things really brings it all together. And I also have to say, the production design, I think, is fantastic. The makeup is great when Friend is kind of halfway between aged and his young self. I think looks great.
Some cool Twilight Zone creepy looking stuff there, yeah.
Totally, but I feel like it's almost like a little bit better looking than Twilight Zone.
Oh, no, it is. It's Hollywood budget, but no, it's... Yeah, no, that's right. And by the way, I don't know if you read this, but I read that Stanley Kubrick was an uncredited consultant on it, like visual consultant.
Was he really?
Well, yeah, because I don't think I feel like he didn't live far from where they were doing this, and it's kind of like
they were doing this in Ireland. He lived in Ireland.
He lived in England. So
I know he lived in England, but I guess it's not too far.
He didn't have to fly, basically.
Right.
So, because Kubrick hated flying. But it's not surprising because there are definitely scenes where it's kind of, and I wonder when it says visual consultant, like, does it mean that John Boorman watched Kubrick's movies? And because, I mean, there are some things that, and not in a bad way, but there are definitely some scenes that look like, even if I didn't read the thing about Kubrick, I still would have said, like, that kind of reminds me of 2001. That kind of reminds me of Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
So
sure.
Yeah. There's one particularly very Clockwork Orange scene. in it. When they're
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
they have him. This is part of the
And when did Clockwork Orange come out?
73.
I was going to say 73. So probably right when they were making this. So,
Oh yeah, it's when they're trying to when they're trying to like make Sean Connery get a boner, and they're showing him all the porn.
So they are trying to understand what makes somebody want to, I guess, engage in a sexual act.
Right.
Like what stimulates somebody sexually, because they are in this, post-sexuality society. And so they want to understand, and the way to do that is through Zed. And by the way, we will be spoiling the movie because it's a little unavoidable.
It's been 50 years.
Right, but even still, like you can tell everybody exactly what happens in the movie, and it still won't necessarily make sense or take away from experiencing it yourself. And so,
not in the least. No, I don't think
the fact that
you can't.
The fact that Zed is, brought to the vortex by Arthur Frayne under this guise of Zardoz, and kind of tricking him into thinking that he was coming to I don't know, infiltrate their world and mess them all up and free themselves from being, whatever.
I think he was just curious because he was like, yeah, I heard people live forever here.
Yeah, totally. And, but he was actually brought there, and the idea being that he would, free them from their immortality. And what the rest of the group doesn't know is, Arthur Frayne's plan. Mm-hmm. And for them, it is this way of understanding the other side of things and the way that the Brutals exist. And for them, it's a scientific study.
Right. Well, it's another good way to differentiate the Brutals from the Eternals, is that the Eternals are ruled by intellect, and it's a society in which, like, that sector of human beings has suppressed the id so much, suppressed, those naturalistic human urges, whereas the Brutals are all id, and it's just like it's raping and killing,
right?
And just that is how they live. It is survival of the fittest,
and a lot of that is because of what they have learned from Zardoz, the god that they worship, and that literally, it's a giant, like, stone floating head that vomits guns at them,
right?
And encourages for them to kill. And a lot of that is in a way to condition them, to groom them to eventually come to the vortex and kill.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, that makes, because during the movie, I was looking at it as, like, the Eternals are encouraging the Brutals to just eliminate themselves, because they also say, because Zardoz also says, like, the penis is evil and don't spread your seed. So I guess you could, and this is like, I'm sorry to speak about this, like, glibly, but because then it's like, well, they definitely show that, like, they raped women, but I guess if you killed them, it was okay.
Well, also for the Eternals, death is liberation, and it's something that they don't get to experience, and so there is an element to them. And also, it's like they are kind of the second generation Eternals, like it's their parents that developed the society, and so they are the ones who are now living with the, I guess, the burden of figuring out what to do next. And so Arthur Frayne, who this is never explained, but, like, truly uses actual magic to make things happen. The Zardoz head being one thing, floating around, like, that's never really explained. There's never any mechanics to it. And he does perform certain magical acts. And also the world in the vortex is also controlled by an AI. Like there is an element that is also very familiar to us now that wouldn't have been something in 1974 that they would have necessarily been realizing could be such a, I don't know, I guess like a big component of our fears. Or I guess some of our fears. Not everybody would also be squashed, but
I mean, though, it's like I sometimes it's funny because we think about that and we're like, oh wow, oh wow, that's such a coincidence. And sometimes now I'm like, wow, we have so many old movies about the dangers of AI and control. And I know like sometimes it's a metaphor for for fascism, which, again, something else that filmmakers probably hoped wouldn't be as relevant.
Right.
So, it's funny because after a certain point, I'm like, maybe it's not, like, there's definitely there's wisdom in these movies. And I mean, Zardoz, especially when you look at the message here about separation and scientific progress and the whole kind of continuing the Jurassic Park question of just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right. Well, and also to go back to something that you were saying earlier, this is something that came up a few years earlier in 2001.
Yeah.
There's a poster right behind you if anybody needs a visual representation of that. But, an artificial intelligence who becomes too powerful.
Right.
And what you need to do to literally dismantle it.
Well, yeah. And yeah. Stanley Kubrick's movies definitely tell us a few things about the dangers of AI, of mind control.
Quite literally.
Yes.
At the very end of his career.
Yeah.
Well, then passed on to Steven Spielberg, but
yes. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't even making that connection.
The movie called AI, Artificial Intelligence.
No, I know. I've gotten to the point, and of course I was obsessed with that movie because I loved Kubrick and I was so excited for it, but I've kind of since I've associated it more with Spielberg, and I like the movie. But anyway, but yeah, and then Clockwork Orange about government and
control,
government controlling its citizens, thought control, mind control, things like that. So toxic masculinity with The Shining.
Yeah. And also Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, no, definitely Eyes Wide Shut, though. I feel like, Eyes Wide Shut, perhaps in a more, definitely in a different way than The Shining, but
100%, absolutely in a different way. It's a movie about a guy who has a dream that his wife cheats on him, and so he's determined to cheat on her and is unable to.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. It's basically, it's about, that one's more about, I guess they're both about the costs of toxic masculinity, but yeah, I definitely would put, Jack Nicholson in The Shining more in the, that category. But anyway, coming back to, speaking of toxic masculinity, Sean Connery,
yeah.
Though I love the story about him knocking out Johnny Stompanato when he came at him with a gun. Did you ever hear that?
No.
I saw it in several sources that Sean Connery was in a movie with Lana Turner when Lana Turner, this is pre-Bond, but Lana Turner was dating Johnny Stompanato. We, those familiar with the story know that eventually Lana Turner's daughter killed Johnny Stompanato.
Oh,
yes.
I did not know.
Oh, yeah, because he was so paranoid about Lana Turner cheating on him, and of course, she was always around these Hollywood leading men, and he came onto the set where she was filming with Connery, and he started coming at Connery. It said that, like, in multiple accounts, with a gun. Connery disarmed him and knocked him down.
Yeah.
And had him removed from the set. And I could totally see Connery doing that. But yeah, anyway, Johnny's
a big dude, and he doesn't care.
I'm trying to remember.
He's just going to do what he's got to do.
I can't remember Lana Turner's, the daughter's name, but her daughter from a previous marriage, Stompanato was incredibly abusive, and at one point, the little girl, she may be 14, stabbed him in the stomach.
Dang.
Grabbed a knife from the kitchen, stabbed him in the stomach. So he had it coming.
More like
he had
Stabanato.
Yeah.
So back to Zardoz.
Yeah. All over the place here.
This movie really thrilled me in so many different ways. Like I said, seeing it in a packed theater was like, if I was sitting at home watching this, I probably would have, gotten a little confused or lost and felt a little isolated by it. But the moments where I felt confused and lost when I was in a theater filled with people was it's a collective experience.
It's a different story when you're seeing a movie in a theater. You're immersed.
Yeah, and so before the show started, somebody from the theater came out to introduce it and
love that.
Did ask for a show of hands of who hadn't seen the movie before. And it was maybe like a 50-50 split for the audience. And
that's the best for this kind of movie.
Yeah, and the rest of the audience certainly was so excited for the rest of the audience to now be part of it. And there were so many moments where the audience just cheered, like when he is going into that prism for the first time and he just kind of falls in and is everybody cheered. And there were just and of course the reveal, the Wizard of Oz reveal.
Yeah.
That was a moment where everybody cheered. And you know what? Actually, that's the only other thing about this movie that I did know is that Zardoz is taken from Zard of Oz.
Got it.
I knew that, but I didn't know how that fit into anything.
Right.
And when I found out how, I was just like, was that necessary?
No.
Did that need to be a thing? I love the title Zardoz. I love the logo for Zardoz. I think it's great, but does it need to necessarily mean something?
Well, and I get how they're all right, it's kind of loosely, it's not like a remake of The Wizard of Oz, but there's this character who goes from, one world to a starkly different world, much more colorful inside the vortex. And there's the idea of the giant stone head, which was the wizard, and the lies and the deception.
Yeah. But
he explains you don't need
he
the book.
Explains it all as being the man behind the curtain pulling all the strings.
Yeah, you don't need to actually have the book. No. You could just, I think The Wizard of Oz, even by 1974, was so enshrined in our collective consciousness. I mean, that what I was getting at before, it's you can make Wizard of Oz references now and they'll still go over, and people get it, and people still, look at Wicked, it's huge. So the legacy is there. You didn't need to, you could just have people go see it and say, that was kind of like The Wizard of Oz.
But even probably not.
No, but still, it's there were some things. The vortex definitely feels like a kind of messed up Emerald City.
Right. Yeah, I think that just the title alone, Zardoz, is cool enough and strong enough to bring you in, and it's it doesn't need to mean anything. And yeah, I suppose that's a place where people can be like, oh, it's almost kind of like it, you can't spell The Wizard of Oz without Zardoz and all that kind of stuff, but you don't necessarily need to call anything out or make any explicit, commentary within the movie about its connection.
No, that did,
or
it was
its influence.
It was unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoyed also just the way that the Eternals had certain technologies, the little projector rings. I thought were really cool. I loved the way that visually appeared in the movie.
Yeah.
When when Zed is in Arthur Frayn's I don't know, bachelor pad or whatever it was, and the beaded curtains and whatever.
There were some scenes that looked like they got the decorations from Party City.
Yeah, and totally. And I was okay
Not a
with that.
critique.
Not a critique
Compliment.
at all. No, I thought that it was really cool. It was fun. And like, yeah, you have those moments of the Neanderthal experiencing civilization for the first time and getting spooked by things and exploring, and that was kind of fun.
Connery with the Jack in the Box.
Oh my God, that got a huge roar of applause in the theater when the Jack in the Box.
But you know that, and that's the thing is like I have to say, like, just watching this alone in my house, you know, I had having a rare moment to do it. It was great because I still shouted things out and I was still just like, you know, going, like there were lines that I just loved, and I like loved the delivery of those lines and the scenes. And I'm like, what is happening us now? Like the line when like when they tell, when I wrote, these are the same people in the vortex, the Eternals would do a Midsommar. That's what they totally felt that way. Yeah, like when they're basically proposing to Connery, like, hey, get us all pregnant.
Right. Oh, and we didn't even talk about, are they called the apathetics?
Oh,
yeah. So that's like the group of Eternals who are kind of invalids. Well, I can't remember exactly how
they're nihilists.
They're nihilists. Yeah. I can't remember exactly how they became like kind of catatonic, but there's so much more to this movie than what we're even able to cover. There's a whole thing about what the food situation is like there and everything.
Oh, because that's what the Brutals do. That's the other thing, is the Brutals are they are unknowingly like growing food for the, I think that was in there.
Yeah, because they can't eat the bread they can't eat the bread from the flour that they make in the vortex, something like that.
Well, maybe because it doesn't age. Maybe because if you can't have, if there's no,
do all things not age, or is it just the people?
I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing that. I don't know that they established the rules that firmly.
Yeah.
So
there's not like an expository character who's like laying things out, where it's like, I mean, Friend in some ways is the exposition character who, you know, when he's taking them around, he's taking Zed around to people, is explaining who is what. I loved Friend, by the way. I thought he was fantastic.
He was great.
What a ridiculous character, and I loved it.
You know, it's something else that I found about this movie that maybe fits into the more contemporary conversation about like the ideas of masculinity, the idea that in the vortex men are kind of, and I put this in quotes, emasculated. Just, you know, they're because they're not running around in their, you know, whatever He-Man outfits and, you know, raping and killing. I think, it feels like the idea is like taking is like I was saying before, like separating those two parts of the human psychology, and the commentary of maybe this is, you know, also coming a few years after the whole, like, you know, flower power, the hippies, and you have the ideas of, you know, and also Boorman carrying over from Deliverance. You know, masculinity is certainly a theme in that as well. But you have the character of Friend, who's, you know, he's not he's not stereotypically masculine. He's Prince Adam. He's Prince Adam to Connery's He-Man. And by the way, I like, God damn it, why could John Boorman not have done? I was like, John Boorman, this should have been John Boorman's ticket to making the Masters of the Universe movie 10 years later, when Masters of the Universe was a thing.
Right. Yeah.
Like, man, he could have done it. He could have done it. So, I mean, all due respect to Dolph Lundgren and the team at Canon, but.
And you know what? Who knows? You know, maybe he was in consideration, because it's not like Zardoz put Boorman in movie prison. He certainly went on to.
Exorcist 2 did that.
Right. He had other opportunities to do that for himself. But Exorcist 2 also has its supporters.
Exorcist 2,
its fan base.
Yes, Exorcist 2, right? Martin Scorsese, notably, you know, it's cinema. And I mean, we're not here to talk about. We've talked about The Exorcist. We did a whole episode on everything Exorcist. Well, at least everything Exorcist that existed at that time.
Yeah.
Now we know that there was Exorcist the beginning, and now there's going to be the Mike Flanagan Exorcist. And anyway, John Boorman Exorcist 2 is definitely like worth seeing if especially if you've seen Zardoz and you're like, all right, so John Boorman is a really interesting filmmaker. Because I mean, Deliverance is definitely edgy, and it wasn't a cookie cutter film. Still isn't. I haven't seen it in quite a long time, mostly because it's not the most pleasant viewing experience. But he also made one of the best, but it was very like there's nothing experimental really about Deliverance. The way that there is about Zardoz or even Exorcist 2, which goes into some kind of like weird psychological places. But then he also did Hope and Glory. Have you ever seen Hope and Glory?
I have not seen Hope and Glory.
I haven't seen it in a long time, but it was one of those that was on HBO a lot when we were kids. And it is really, that movie kind of defined how I imagine the Blitz to be in London, because it's about life in London during World War II and rations and bombing raids, but also trying to be like a normal. It's based on his own experiences.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And Hope and Glory is wonderful. Like I really want to rewatch it. It's so rarely streaming, and it's kind of hard to find a physical copy of it. But wonderful movie if you haven't seen it. Good. And it's John Boorman, but it's John Boorman doing a more, traditional narrative, historical drama. Okay. Interesting. So I love that like this filmmaker has these two sides and is one of those filmmakers who is able to kind of go back and forth and do and isn't afraid to take chances as you were saying before. Yeah. Yeah, he's clearly a very capable director when given those guardrails. And then when he is not given those guardrails, we get these kind of gems that are very, I guess, divisive. Your Zardoz's, your Exorcist 2s. You have the people who are diehard fans, and then there's people who see them or maybe scoff at them for certain reasons. I will say Zardoz has a lot, in my opinion, a lot more going for it than Exorcist 2. Fair enough, but also very different audiences in a lot of ways. Yeah. But Dan, you mentioned earlier the kind of parallels in thought to the Vortex in a movie like Midsommar. What would you do given the opportunity to actually like make something new with Zardoz? I would probably, I hesitate to say, so I think I go remake with this, but very reluctantly. I would do it like Darren Aronofsky is a name that comes up and is another one of those filmmakers who can go for, he did, you could do The Fountain and The Wrestler. Okay. And I think Aronofsky, it would be fun to see him do something fun. Sure. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't mind seeing Darren Aronofsky take it on. And there might be some, there are probably some other, filmmakers who have like the vision and nuance to pull off a Zardoz remake that doesn't necessarily, that tries to deliver the message of it and the story perhaps slightly more cohesively, but doesn't try to imitate the, and Darren Aronofsky doesn't go for cohesiveness really. Like he doesn't, that's not his main goal. So I think an Aronofsky Zardoz that tries to be its own. The only reason why I don't want to say remake though is because I don't want to ever have to be like, have you seen Zardoz? Be like, right. Oh yeah. I'd be like, wait a second. Did like the 2026 Zardoz or 74? So it's kind of, it would be unfortunate. I don't know that I would be excited about a remake unless it was under the under the direction of someone like that. Also somebody who can make films without a lot of, studio interference. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of where I would go with it. There are so many other, like, I think there's so many other like fun things that you could do with it. Like, I would love to go see it. I would have loved to have come down and seen it in, with you. That is and that's just kind of like the, life and responsibilities. And I can't just zip down to Portland to see Zardoz. I don't think I could, but even if it was playing around the corner, I don't know that I'd be able to.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But I would love the opportunity to see it in the way that you did. I would really, this is kind of towards the top of that list.
The day your youngest turns 18 and you can just do whatever you want.
I'm taking him
to see some movies together.
You know what? I could he might, maybe as young as 14 could just come along.
No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
We're a little ways away.
No,
he's a little guy.
He's 3. So yeah, I hope I might not have the time before he turns 18, but
yeah.
What would, John, I don't know. You've had the theatrical experience. You've shaved your mustache in the manner befitting the film. You are not wearing
I shaved my beard. I didn't touch my mustache.
Yes, no, you shaved your beard. Sorry. So what do you do?
And then also you say you shaved, for anybody who is just listening and not watching on YouTube or Spotify. I didn't just shave into a mustache and put my hair back. I'm also doing this thing Zardoz style. I'm topless, baby.
I thought I said that.
Oh, I didn't hear you say that.
I said sitting there without a shirt on.
Oh,
letting all your chesticles hang out.
You know what? If I could have added more chest hair, I would have certainly done so in the spirit of Sean Connery, who, by the way, his armpit hair looks like it's almost got a comb over to go like onto his chest. So clearly the theatrical experience, I urge anybody who has an opportunity to see this movie, go see it. If you are a programmer for any type of, rep theater, like, go check it out, program it. But as far as creating something new for it, like you said, I feel like a direct remake wouldn't be appropriate, but some sort of revisitation of the Zardoz world and story would be a lot of fun. And because this movie deals with the separation of classes, a very large gap between the classes, there's only one director I can think of who time and time again nails that type of story, and that's Bong Joon-ho, who has a history of making movies that have whimsy and a blend of I guess like real world panic that deals so heavily with the separation between the wealthy and the poor, or different class structures.
Oh, great call, John. I totally slept on Boone. I totally slept on him as a possible re-envisioner of Zardoz. I think it's a re-envisioning.
I feel like he would have so much fun with it.
Yes.
The worlds that he creates are so rich, even when they are ones that take place in the real world, and then there's ones that take place like Mickey 17 is on another planet and everything.
Right.
That's a different story. And Parasite taking place more in the real world. You also have
Snowpiercer,
the host, and things like that. So
Snowpiercer is a really great. One. That's a really like for
and
Zardoz.
Snowpiercer is also very Zardoz-y.
It is,
in the sense that you have these like larger than life personalities, and somebody from the wrong side of the train, breaking through.
Who would be your present day Zed?
That is a tough one. That's a really difficult one, because you want to find somebody who can pull off being a bit of a a numbnuts, just a big bozo, but then can like have a transformation. And
Randy Quaid.
well,
I'm
I mean,
kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Sorry. I don't know why that.
Randy Quaid. I don't know. I mean, numbnuts, I think makes you think of Randy Quaid.
I guess
probably.
Yeah. That, you know what? Yeah, that was the word that did it.
Well, if you're trying to think of somebody who's probably around 40, I think is kind of like the range that you would want a
Around
Z
40.
to be. I think.
'Cause I was thinking like Idris Elba, but maybe not Idris Elba now. I might be thinking of like 10 years ago.
No, Idris Elba, I feel like is like no matter what, when you see him on screen, you're just like, that is a cool person.
Yeah. No,
and there's something about Zed where you're just like, this is not a cool person. This is somebody who's a complete oaf. And I think that's another like issue with actors today is that, you know, there's a bit of realism that doesn't exist with them. You know who I think might be kind of good is like Will Poulter. I think he'd be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he'd be a lot of fun with something like this. He's got a good look to him. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't put any of like the typical, you know, leading men type of roles, you know, any of the Chris's or anything like that. I wouldn't put any of them in a role like this.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a tough territory.
What about? No, never mind.
Oh, who are you gonna say?
No, never mind. No,
Danny McBride. I feel like you always pull out. Danny
I was
McBride
not going to say Danny McBride. No,
he's I think too old for something like this.
Yeah,
and a different type of character.
Yeah, no, I wasn't going to go Danny McBride there, but no, that's when you think kind of that oafish, you know, numbnuts
mentality
character. He could definitely pull that off. You know, I know this is one we might have to we might have to like come back to this question.
Right. Yeah,
because I feel like the answer is out there. I just don't have it right now.
Yeah, I'm also going through like actors who I know would be able to have fun with a role like this, and I go to
definitely not Liam Neeson.
Not Liam Neeson, that's for sure. Way too old, first of all.
If honestly, a younger Liam Neeson
would be perfect for this.
Definitely pull it off. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I feel like I don't know, like I could see somebody like Bill Hader, but I don't know, there's like a different body type that I think you need for a role like this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Also, again, like a younger Keanu.
Maybe a younger Keanu. Yeah. Well, listeners, viewers, if you have ideas for folks you want to get involved in a Zardoz remake, or if you have ideas for a way to bring back Zardoz, email us ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com. Check out ruinedchildhoodspod.com for all sorts of fun stuff and merch and whatever else. Rate and review the show so that other people can find it easily. Watch it on YouTube. Leave a comment.
Yes.
We got some comments recently. There must be an uptick on the algorithm there. Some people may actually a lot more activity on our Gabriel over the White House episode, which is interesting. But I think it's people who are trying to watch the movie and not here to, you know, jagweeds, you know, ramble on about it.
But hey, that's a great movie worth checking out. And hey, check out our discussion on it after you watch it. Gabriel over the White House.
Yeah. Who knew? The first on-screen president. Or first fictional president? Was that what it was?
Was it on-screen fictional president?
Yeah,
yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Whatever. So, Dan, I would love to know what we're doing for our next episode on this season, where we're going up and down the alphabet, A to Z, then Z to A. This is our first Z movie. What's our second Z movie?
Our second Z movie is Z. Because we had to have two, because so we go Zardoz, which starts with a Z and ends with a Z, and then we need to bounce back up to the Z again. So we're doing Z from 1969, directed by Costa Gavras, starring Yves Montand, Irene Papas, Jean-Louis Trintignant, François Perrier, Jacques Perrin.
You're going to be responsible for all of the pronunciation on the next episode.
I'm so
I can't
excited.
do that. I
man.
can't do that. I'm excited to talk about Z as well. If you all listeners haven't had a chance to check out Z, definitely give it a watch. It's going to require some active engagement for that one.
Yeah.
It's something else in a different way from the way that Zardoz is something else.
But also, again, relevant.
Extremely so. Well, Dan, as you are riding Zardoz's giant head into the vortex, I wish you a good journey.
Good journey.